about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOC-DALI. So the shutdown is well into its fourth week, hitting the month mark this week. And we are really, really grateful to a billionaire. I believe he was from the Mellon family, like Carnegie Mellon. I'm not too sure. I don't know too much about him. But apparently he's a friend of Donald Trump's who has donated money. Not loaned, donated money to pay our military paychecks during the shutdown. Pretty damn cool. Let me see if I think it's Timothy Mellon is his name. He's heir to the, remember the Industrial Revolution, the industrialist and former Treasury Secretary Andrew Mellon. He was apparently unnamed as the secret donor who is who Trump actually had said, I have a great friend who's going to be supplying money to help pay for our military while we're still waiting for the Democrats to sign the CR. And he didn't want to disclose his name, but I guess the New York Times figured it out. Very, very cool for him to, what was it, like $130 million he donated? Or no, 1.3, no, we have 1.3 million active duty military. He gave $130 million to pay the troops. Pretty cool. So unfortunately, we have a lot of things at risk. We got the SNAP benefits, we got the military pay, we got the WIC nutrition assistance that might be running out, Head Start programs. So by November 1, it gets ugly. And even though it's a 24-page CR, which Democrats have approved and signed before without an issue, there's this united front with the Democrats to not sign it because they want to address Obamacare subsidies, which, but in their defense, Obamacare is a mess. And yes, we have got to revamp and figure out what we're doing with the subsidies. That has got to be addressed, but just not a part of the CR. Once you start to change the CR and add extra stuff and then start making it complicated, you want the continuing resolution. The reason why it's passed before, and it's only 24 pages, is because the government does not want a holdup, another shutdown. And so the CR has to be designed to, and well choreographed to be like, look, is this something the Democrats and the Republicans agree on? We sign it, continue the resolution, continue the funding. So again, we don't lose our WIC benefits, SNAP benefits. This is unique in that Chuck Schumer and other Democrats have said this is a point of leverage. Now we can pull back on the big, beautiful bill, start to get some, some of our numbers back up because, they've been having issues with their constituents and numbers going down. And so the problem with that is once you set a precedence of we are going to make the CR another opportunity, let's get back into the ring of, we are going to then be facing shutdowns forever. I really like the idea of small bills, and I like the idea of things being separated. If we have to vote on Obamacare should have never been 2,200 pages. The Affordable Care Act should have, not been this big, beautiful bill. It shouldn't have. And because again, you want to stop pre-existing conditions from being used as an excuse that's one sentence. All in favor, say aye. You probably would have got a unanimous vote on that. Then you would have got unanimous vote on insurance companies have to pay for physicals. That would have been, everybody would have agreed to that. Then you start getting to the deeper stuff. The problem is the way politics work is they need the popular things to Trojan in the unpopular things. So we have this bill that was basically designed to please the insurance companies and let them make as much money as possible under the guise of, well, you're going to lower rates for some Americans. And now these tax subsidies and all that have to be revoted on. Not really supposed to be a part of the continuing resolution. Continuing resolution is about paying for the government. That has to be its own separate bill. So how do you get 5 more Democrats? Because thank God we have Catherine Cortez Masto, John Fetterman, I forget the other one, moderate Democrats who are like, this is BS. Come on, my constituents need their SNAP benefits. My military families, my federal civilian workers need to get paid. This is ridiculous. Not to mention what's been happening at the airports with the delays. So you already have 3 Democrats saying, this is ridiculous, guys. I am here for my constituents. This isn't to, use as leverage and all that. So how do you get 5 more Democrats to just sign the CR, which they approved before? One is, as I said last week, you as the voter have to reach out to them and say, look, I know you think this is popular, but you're not going to get reelected if you keep doing this. We got your back. We will forget this month-long BS. We have your back if you just refund the government. Yes, we do need to look at Obamacare again. We probably need to, come up with Trump care. We got to fix the ACA. We got to do something with the subsidies, but get the government open, and then we could spend the weeks or months or whatever we have to do to rehash and fix ACA. We're doing a temporary November 1 allowance of the subsidies, and a very temporary one. You could do a very small continuing resolution for those tax subsidies, but one is reach out to your senators. Number 2 is to get private donors and get these private billionaires and millionaires to say, look, you know what? While this BS is going on, this is so ridiculous, we're going to help. What does SNAP need? What does Head Start need? And get charities and donors to get together. And because the longer this goes, the more ridiculous the look. I mean, it's really looking ticky-tack. And so I know there's all these charities that need money right now, et cetera, but this is the time when people are going to start donating. The other thing, too, is your 5 Democrats in areas where they have military and they have, let them actually see what's going on at the food banks. Let them, invite them to come and see that. Get some photo ops with them and then see if they're going to still double down and say, nah, we're going to vote with Schumer. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799 and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our fantasy football pocket guide for beginners found on Amazon or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to you all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So as much as America has become as great as it could be and one of the most strong world powers and economic beacons of the world, it is losing its capitalistic charm as we are seeing socialist, democratic socialist, close to communist type of politicians making headway. You see Zoran Mondami, you see we have in a few other races that we're seeing, and I want to get the names right. I apologize. We have Omar Fateh in Minnesota. There's also a Seattle mayor race, where she identifies as more of or has been characterized as more of a socialist. And so we were talking about how healthcare would become a socialized system eventually if we can't figure out how to fix Obamacare, how to, address the needs of millions who need health care and are facing ridiculous premiums and deductibles with insurance. I do not want us to go to socialized medicine. We see the disaster it is in Europe and other countries, but our capitalistic form is a cluster and a seventh. And again, because the ACA started to introduce more socialistic means of controlling it. And there's a whole variety of reasons why our healthcare system is the way it is today. And a lot of it stems from the malpractice crisis back in 2002 and the exponential malpractice lawsuits that just skyrocketed in the 90s that led us to the 2002 malpractice crisis, where doctors like me, I was getting trained by physicians who were sued, for late diagnosis, delayed a diagnosis, maybe missing cancer, weeks earlier. And so we were trained, don't mess around, order the test now, right? Because you get sued, you lose your malpractice insurance. It doesn't matter how good a doctor you are. And so many physicians in my generation was like, wait a second, you're having a headache that's not going away. We're going to order the brain scan, especially since I had a friend who was sued for not ordering the scan. Patient was, not necessarily complaining of things that would have signified a brain tumor. It was more they were having migraines, and he's like, look, you probably should get an MRI. The patient's like, I can't afford that. I don't have insurance. He's like, well, think about it. We treated the patient, and then later the patient ends up having a brain tumor, and the family, in court says, yeah, we would have paid for the MRI. We would have. Why didn't he order it? And so doctors in my generation are like, we're not going to miss a cancer. We're not going to miss a brain tumor. We're not going to see renal failure. We're not going to let our patient get that far. So we are going to nip it in the bud, and we are going to aggressively, and we did actually really well finding cancer early. In fact, ENTs were telling me that I had, found the most thyroid cancers they've ever seen a family doctor do. And I'm like, well, I feel it. Doesn't feel right. I ultrasound, send them to the ENT, and they biopsy them, they diagnose it. If you're not looking for it, you don't find it. The problem is that caused healthcare costs to rise so much that Obamacare ended up having to step in because insurance companies are like, look, we can't pay for the MRIs and the CAT scans. And now that we're finding cancer, we have to pay for cancer treatment. It was easier when somebody had end-stage cancer and we couldn't do anything about it and they would just die. Now that we're fighting cancer at stage 1, stage 2, we found, I made one of my family members go and get mammograms who didn't believe in mammograms, and we found her breast cancer at a stage 2. So we were able to successfully get that treated, and she's still alive, doing well. But yeah, that cost the insurance company money. So now we're in this predicament where, we have, high deductibles, high insurance premiums, and we're not going to see any relief anytime soon. But what about socialism as a whole? For the government to start controlling or community control of industry and production. And a lot of the things Zohran Mamdani are suggesting in the New York mayor race are actually more communistic, more government control as opposed to society controlled. And he's gaining in the polls. Like I said, asking Curtis Sliwa to bow out when he's the Republican candidate is probably not going to be very successful because, one, he doesn't want to, leave the race, and two, if people want to vote for Zohran Mamdani, they're going to vote for him. If they want to vote for a Republican to be the mayor, they're going to vote for him. They're not going to go, you know what, let me vote for Andrew Cuomo, even though I didn't like him. And, even though he is technically the lead and could win. I know people think that you have to manipulate the election so it's only Andrew Cuomo against Mamdani, but I really think New Yorkers want Mamdani in there. Now, they may echo the anti-Israel sentiment and anti-Semitic threads he has. They might really feel spoken to when he says New York is unaffordable. It is. You can't afford to live in New York. It's ridiculous. And as our country is starting to become unaffordable, what the average house price is $400,000, an average house price. It's almost like you need a minimum income of six figures. We don't have a bunch of six-figure jobs. Not to mention, now that AI is helping these companies save money and getting rid of employees. Listen, AI won't sue you for workers' comp. AI won't, bring toxicity to the workplace. AI won't call out. AI won't get pregnant. As much as I love, people propagating and having kids and all that, employers, like you're now seeing with Amazon being sued by pregnant patients, it doesn't help their bottom line. So they're replacing all these individuals with AI. It's more of an incentive to them. So now we're hearing politicians say, well, we need universal income. Our Gen Z aren't getting jobs. They got scammed into going to a university when we have so many universities. They got scammed into doing that, getting a degree, spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for a degree, and there's no job for them. So eventually we're going to need universal income. We're going to need our groceries cheaper, our gas cheaper. We're going to need housing and rent. Now that rent, I'm looking at rent. Rent is ridiculous. What rent is, I live in Las Vegas, Nevada, and, my sons are looking at apartments and things like that. $2,000 a month. $2,000 a month. That's a lot of money for rent. I paid, even though the apartments were about $400 or $500 at the time, I remember paying about $150 to $200 so I could rent a room. That's kind of where people are at. And now with New York, you're having people do that too, where they're living in people's basements or they're renting rooms so it's not sustainable. So if the American public and the voter does not think capitalism is working for them because they're not making the millions, they're going to vote for socialism. See, in the olden days, it was, look, you work hard, you show up to your job, you keep your job, you don't fight with people on the job, you don't tell your boss, take this job and shove it. You earn money, you save, you can have a house. The olden days, wifey was a housewife. You could do single income and be able to have a house with a white picket fence. No, that's not the way it is. Even double income is not enough to pay for what try going to fast food. You can't buy lunch for under $10, a lunch meal. $10. That's ridiculous. So I go get groceries. Every time I go to get groceries, I'm spending about $150 to $200 to make sandwiches, to make dinner, now that's cheaper than going out to eat, but that's a lot of money. And so if the average American is like, look, the Kardashians, the Beyoncés, they're making bank. We're not. These basketball players, capitalism is helping the rich. Now, I love the idea of capitalism. You work, the harder you work, the better you do. But if the average person is like, but I can't get a job, I can't use this degree, I am now in debt with a communications or climate science or women's studies or business finance degree, they are going to need the government to step in. And the more the government steps in, not only do we become more socialized, but become more communistic. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY. Don't go away.
Looking for a gift that can actually help secure someone's future? It's Mark Falter's new book, Common Sense Income Strategies. It makes the perfect gift for that special someone in your life. Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using time-tested strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. To learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Secure your future with Common Sense Income Strategies by Mark Falter. Again, to learn how to receive your free copy, call 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DOLLY, 1-877-DOC-DALI. So this is an alarming number. More than 1 in 150 births. So if you have 150 pregnant women, according to the statistics, 1 of those pregnancies will end in stillbirth. Now, we're not talking about miscarriage. Stillborns are those pregnancies that make it past 20 weeks, the halfway mark. Miscarriages are a lot more common, unfortunately. Some women don't even realize that a miscarriage. They might think they have a heavy period if it happens very, very early on. These are you making it well into your second trimester. And then 1 in 150 of us, that baby's going to die. The CDC had published the national average is 1 in 175, but a recent study has brought that down. But it's even worse in low-income areas. 1 in every 112 births ended in stillbirth. The fetus dies. And this is even more alarming. The researchers in this study observed that the stillbirth rate was 1 in every 95 births in areas with higher proportions of black families compared to white families. 1 in 95 women losing their baby. Now, this study did not find the rates vary according to being in a rural area or levels of access to obstetrical care. The majority of stillbirths really didn't have an identifiable clinical risk factor. But according to co-author Jessica Cohen, professor of health economics, stillbirths impact nearly 21,000 families each year in the U.S., nearly half of these occurring at the end stage of pregnancy, 37 plus weeks. These are thought to be preventable. So a child dying, a fetus dying, and to me it's a child, after 20 weeks could be from a variety of things. Could be the mom has high blood pressure. Mom has diabetes or gestational diabetes, substance use, obesity. There could be fetal medical issues, growth restriction. And so, smoking, alcohol use. I mean, there could be a whole variety of things. But looking at socioeconomic, that's sad. Now, across all the stillbirths in the study, nearly 27.7% had no risk factors at all. Baby just died. Later gestational ages show that the highest rates of having no clinical risk factor among those that occurred at 38 weeks, no risk factor, 39 weeks, 40 plus weeks, but stillbirth rates were highest among pregnancies that had low amniotic fluid levels, fetal anomalies, and chronic hypertension. So when you look at this, you're like, well, what do I do with this? What do we do? How do we save babies? You know, you have a family that wants to keep the baby there, and they're going into their second, third trimester. We had a family member who lost her second child to a stillbirth and never tried again. That was so devastating. Baby died at the 5-month mark, or the fetus died at the 5-month mark. You're bonding, you're feeling the kicks. This is why we, always recommend kick counts and recommend that you are always being aware of the fluttering. One of my children was always moving. The other one wouldn't move much. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And I would be pushing on him, say, look, I just need to feel you move. Come on, man. And he's stubborn. Yeah, stubborn. And it's interesting how you see their you see their personalities. One is a busy bee, and the other is, I'm going to do it in my own sweet time. That's exactly how the pregnancies went. It's fascinating to see that follow through. But I was really, really grateful that I was able to give birth to both of them. There was, sadly, the risk that both of them would have died before they were given birth. One, because of the nurses weren't watching the monitor, and I was in a room with no monitor. I said, please, I have no problem being in the room with no monitor where I could see myself, my own monitor, so other moms could use it, but I want to hear the heart rate. And I wake up to the heart rate being down to the 40s when the heart rate should have been 140. And I'm screaming, when I was trying to get somebody look at the monitor, what's going on? I was in a contraction for 13 minutes. So Stone could have died, my older one. And then my younger one just stopped growing. So we go into the high-risk OB, and they go, wow, you got a big baby. He's 7 pounds, and we're at the 8-month mark. And I go, he was 7 pounds a month ago. He's not growing. And they're like, oh, well, I guess we're inducing you today. And so I'm lucky because I'm a doctor. And I get, doctors always have these stories where they're like, well, I had to save my own child's life, or I had to save my own. I think what happens is people get comfortable. They're like, well, okay, she's a doctor, so we already have an extra set of eyes. And thank God, we had that extra set of eyes, because I could have lost both kids. And not the nurse's fault. They were overwhelmed. They were busy, but somebody wasn't watching the monitor with the first. And, the other doctor was, didn't necessarily at that time look back to see how the weight. They usually would have. I'm sure he would have caught that. But, these are things that we have to kind of take into account, and we have to be on top of it. The idea that, women have given birth for millennia. Do we really need all the medical interventions? We do. Babies died. Moms died. The successful birth rates improved when we intervened. Now, sometimes do we over-intervene? I'm sure there's arguments for over-intervening. But I fear that many of these individuals, 1 in 95 births, might not really be having the access, even though the study out of Harvard didn't necessarily identify that. But if you are able to keep an eye, because we do blood testing, we do we do ultrasounds at 20 weeks. We will ultrasound more if we're worried about fluid and growth and other things. And so our OBs are fantastic. I mean, I am so blown away at how amazing they are, able to make sure our babies make it. I mean, my OB, Dr. Kristen Rojas, is one of the best in the world. Yeah, and I was so grateful. A nurse suggested her when I was in training. I go, I want to get a female OB, a female gynecologist, because I thought I had an ovarian tumor, and I did. Thank God it was benign. But she was, I was at UCLA. I went to an OB-GYN at UCLA. They're like, your ovary's fine. I didn't believe her because I was really skinny, and I felt like I could see it and feel it. And so I go into Dr. Kirsten Rojas. He's like, yeah, you have a mass there. And I go, I know. That's what I've been trying to tell people. And so I've been with her for decades, and I love her. She's amazing. But we have got to do a better job. We cannot have 1 in 95 women, or 1 in 115 women be losing their babies. And so we are sadly going to see that number rise because, as I spoke about with this whole Tylenol issue, it used to be you would have to see your doctor for your birth control. You would have to see your doctor or a gynecologist or your family doctor, et cetera, for your pap smears. So then you would miss a period. And if you missed your period, you would go in and they would diagnose you with pregnancy. You're pregnant. Then you would be either immediately started on prenatals or being cared for, or you would be referred to an OB. And the OB would usually see you after 9-10 weeks because the majority of miscarriages happen before then. So why have you start paying and getting all, excited? They'll usually see you at that point. And that's where they could do more testing and keep an eye on you. Although I always check progesterone level early on and thyroid level, because sometimes I think we could intervene with some miscarriages if you're low on progesterone. But, nowadays people get birth control online or over the counter. And I get that. I like that there's easy access. But there are so many people that just don't have a gynecologist. They don't have a doctor. So now they're pregnant and they try to get in with a new doctor and the new doctor can't see them till March of 2026. That's a problem. And they could be missing out on very important interventions. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH. Don't go away.
Hey guys, it's Clyde. We've had a lot of requests for Ground Zero merchandise, so we put together an online store with a big variety of high-quality items. I'm really excited to let you know about these things. We have a lot to offer you and your loved ones. In addition to our regular apparel, such as t-shirts, beanies, hoodies, and hats, we've expanded our product line with posters, flags, aprons, mugs, and a whole lot more. We also have Ground Zero collectibles along with a limited edition of items like a Clyde Lewis canvas portrait, a Ground Zero embroidered jacket that will certainly make for great gifts and for interesting conversations with family and friends. And we now offer publications such as Ron Patton's book about mind control, MK Zine, and back copies of the official magazine of Ground Zero while it was in print. Paranoia, the Conspiracy Reader, also coming in 2023, are updated and revised books that I've written. There's a secure and easy-to-use shopping cart for your purchases. So shop today at our official store by going to groundzeromerch.com. Again, that's groundzeromerch.com.
Hi, guys. Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious, such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Carl Amari here to tell you about our newest website for old-time radio lovers. It's 100radioshows.com. At this site, there are 5 old-time radio shows waiting for you to download free as our gift to you, and be sure to browse the additional 700 old-time radio shows available to you for 70% off by using the promo code RADIO at checkout. This is a limited-time offer, so log on to 100radioshows.com. That's 100radioshows.com.
Back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, 1-877-DOCDALI. We have some breaking news. A U.S. Navy helicopter and fighter jet in separate South China seas crash. Now, we're just getting some breaking news now, and I apologize. My internet, the Navy helicopter and the fighter jet both go down. These are separate crashes. Multiple news outlets are reporting this. The president had spoken on that. He says the U.S. does not suspect foul play. He is now in Asia doing a tour to discuss tariffs, economy, Taiwan. And so it's very concerning that you have any crashes. But 2 separate U.S. Navy aircraft in the South China Sea have crashed. He made a statement while he was aboard Air Force One, saying he expected to get answers regarding the crashes soon. One possibility he was given was that the planes had faulty fuel. Now, how does that happen? So he said, they're going to let me know pretty soon. I think they should be able to find out. It could be bad fuel. I mean, it's possible it's bad fuel. Very unusual that would happen. A reporter said, do you think it was foul play? He said, I don't. So 2 U.S. Navy aircraft from the USS Nimitz, a Seahawk helicopter and an FA-18 Super Hornet fighter jet crashed during separate routine operations over the South China Sea. All 5 crew members aboard the 2 different crafts were rescued and remain in stable condition. Thank God. The U.S. Pacific Fleet, the Navy's largest operational command, said that this happened around 2:54 local time. An MH-60R Seahawk helicopter assigned to the Battle Cats of Helicopter Maritime Strike Squadron 73 crashed into South China Sea while conducting routine operations for the aircraft carrier, the USS Nimitz. Search and rescue teams from Carrier Strike Group 11 alongside the Nimitz were able to quickly recover them and pull all 3 helicopter crew members from the water. Thank the Lord. And then 30 minutes after that, an FA-18F Super Hornet from the Nimitz, assigned by the Fighting Redcocks of Strike Fighter Squadron 22, also went down the South China Sea during flight operations. Search and rescue teams again responded swiftly, recovering those 2 crew members. So the USS Nimitz has been commissioned, according to Fox News, in the U.S. Navy for 50 years. Its current tour is set to be its last before it gets retired. Wow. When I was reading this and hearing about this, it kind of brought chills back to September 11th. When in September 11th, we saw the plane crash that hit the first tower, and it was horrifying to watch this, and we were just in shock. And then a second one hits, and we go, whoa. There's something, this is deliberate? And so whenever you see, back to back, and then the Pentagon and Flight 93, and, I don't assume anything is a coincidence until proven otherwise. That's just how I look at things. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Hurricane season runs from June 1st to November 1st. Fact, they've been thinking about making hurricane season start mid-May officially because there had been tropical storm activity in May. And we were told we were going to have a mildly above average, not average, but a minimally above average hurricane season. Well, here we are at the end of October, and there's a Category 5 sucker, closing in on Jamaica. Category 5 Melissa. Category 5. Winds over 165 miles per hour. It was a 4, rapidly intensified. And we are expecting, God forbid, a horrible, devastating damage to Jamaica. According to CNN, up to 40 inches of rain, 13 feet of storm surge, and 160 mile per hour sustained winds is going to cause extensive infrastructure damage. It's going to cut off communities, according to the National Hurricane Center. They believe this may be Jamaica's worst hurricane. Mandatory evacuation orders have been issued for vulnerable coastal areas. They think this is going to be the strongest storm ever to hit on record. Apparently, this Hurricane Melissa has already killed 3 people in Haiti and 1 person in the Dominican Republic. But boy, did it rapidly intensify. Melissa more than doubled its strength over the weekend, increasing its winds by 70 miles per hour in just 24 hours. More tropical systems are rapidly intensifying, they say, and bringing out more rain as the atmosphere and warm ocean is fueling this. The CNN says it's because of fossil fuel pollution. That's, I know I can't, with all my scientific background, say why. We're having a not as severe hurricane season, but then one this late in the season. I mean, weather patterns have always been predictable. Climate always changes. Is it our pollution causing this? I prefer to emit less pollution, but I don't know if we could necessarily blame fossil fuels for something this disastrous. So, according to Jamaica's climate change minister, they say the time for preparation is all but over. Matthew Samuda, is Jamaica's Minister of Water, Environment, and Climate Change. Encourage people on the island to use resources sparingly and warn that disruption to the water system could start as soon as tonight. Obviously, when you start to lose water, that is, losing power is one thing, losing water. It's interesting. My mom, who had been living in Florida for some time, would, prior to hurricanes back in the 60s, would fill up the bathtub. You would fill up the bathtub with water, and that was the water you would drink out of. I mean, hopefully your bathtub was clean. My cats and dogs come into our shower. We have a bathtub, but usually we have showers. But you would fill up your bathtub with water so that when the water went out, at least you had water that you could boil and then cook with or clean with. You had gas stoves as opposed to electric. And so you could pretty much still take care of yourself. Now that it's, you have to have an electric stove, you can't have gas, and don't have a tub because people are tripping when they're going into the tub. We are changing the way we're doing bathrooms. We're getting rid of tubs. I don't know, for those of you that do a lot of resales and things like that, the tub is not with the shower. A lot of these tubs are separate, almost like decor for those people who really want to do a bath, but the showers are, because they're more disabled friendly. And you don't have to try to climb in or trip or fall and hit yourself. And so, a shower, you can even wheel a wheelchair into these showers now. So I support homes that make modifications. And in fact, you could get huge tax write-offs when you do that to modify your bathroom to make it more friendly for your joints and for any disabilities that you may have. But it's, we're not necessarily having tubs. So you obviously want to fill up as many tubs or pots or bowls of water that you could use and you can boil up and use if you need to. So I am hoping that Jamaica can recover from this. We are keeping an eye on this. I don't believe Melissa would make landfall. Of course, we'll let you know. Right now, the path looks like we're kind of just trying to get through the Jamaica part of it. But I don't think we have too much information on where it's going to go next. We are, however, expecting it to veer to the left of the United States and go back into the Atlantic. Some people are saying, yeah, but then it could do a loop-de-loop. We don't believe so. We think it's going to hit the Caribbean really hard and then leave. Just Godspeed to Jamaica, and we'll be telling you how to help depending on what happens. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. Don't go away.
Looking for an easy read that can actually help secure someone's future? Pick up a copy of Mark Falter's book, Common Sense Income Strategies. For the past 30-plus years, Mark has helped thousands of hardworking Americans secure their financial future by using strategies that continue to create wealth, whether the market is up or down. Strategies that will make perfect sense once you take the time to read this powerful book. Common Sense Income Strategies brings to you what Mark has been teaching in person and talking about on the radio for decades. It's not rocket science, it's a pretty easy read. You've worked too long and too hard not to see the fruits of your labor. Common Sense Income Strategies is available now on Amazon or by calling 866-764-2635. That's 866-764-2635. Common Sense Income Strategies by financial fitness show host Mark Falter. Secure your financial future today.